So, welcome back. Uh, our speaker does not need to be introduced. She is well known to all of us. She joined the TS in 2006, and since then, she has been doing numerous services. She's an editor of a Colombian magazine. She was one of the first board members of the World Federation of Young Theosophists. She is now the secretary of the School of Wisdom. Plus, she has numerous other responsibilities inside and outside the TS. I welcome Catalina to give the exposition of letter number 135 today. Welcome.
Thank you, Namaste, dear friends on this path. And thank you for joining us this evening. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Brother Pradeep Mahapatra, Sister Vimal for her introduction and for being today with us. And to the entire Indian section team whose efforts make this weekly study possible. And Sister Lakshmisa with her translation always at the end in Hindi. And to begin, let's take a moment of silence. Maybe if you feel to close your eyes to remind ourselves of our shared thoughts and intentions, which unite us across physical distances. So just feel the gratitude for being here now, sharing a common intention of increasing and deepening our understanding of such valuable material that is the Mahatma letters. I'll begin sharing the screen. So today, as Sister Vimal mentioned, we are going to take the letter 135. It is the first of two sessions. And this letter is the number 135 in the chronological edition, but corresponds to the letter 138, sorry, in Baker numbering. And let's just see a quick facts on this letter. It was a letter that was written by HPB in Adyar and received by AP Sinnet in March 1885 in London. He was in London, she was in Adyar. And this letter, this letter is a long letter from HPB to Sinnet, differently from the 132 and 33 that are very short letters. But this really is a long letter that was written shortly before she left India due to her health on March 31st, 1885. And in the letter, she brings the issue of the investigation that was taken by Mr. Richard Hodgson, who was a young member of the British Society for Physical Research. And so his investigation had been completed by the time that she writes the letter. The report had not yet been issued. However, it is evident from the opening paragraphs of the same and the general tone of the letter that HPB already knew that the report will brand her a fraud and that the names of her teachers will be dragged before the public and desecrated. That's the exact expression that she uses in this letter to Sinnet. And this account, highlights the fragile nature of trust and the ease with which doubt can undermine even the most sincere efforts. The intricate methods of occult communication that were given at that time meant to ensure secrecy and accuracy could still be misinterpreted because the precipitation of the letters really, I mean, these intricate methods are the methods of precipitation of the letters that some of the members of the Theosophical Society, including Blavatsky, received at the beginning years of the movement. But even these methods being so intricate and meaning to ensure secrecy and accuracy, even though could still be misinterpreted, leading to accusations and misunderstandings. And this reflects how perception shapes reality, because what one sees or believes often matters more than the truth itself. So due to some miscommunications, due to some misleading information that Mr. Hudson received through all his investigation, this appreciation of the truth was a little distorted. And that's why she was finally accused of fraud. And that's why the teachers were, in her words, dragged before the public and desecrated. HPB's anticipation of being labeled a fraud, because she already knew that she was going to be labeled as a fraud, underscores a timeless struggle. Those who challenge conventional thinking, like HPB did, because she was a pioneer for her time, and she brought all this knowledge from the west from the east, to the west, are often met with skepticism and often the unseen, this kind of things that we cannot understand from the physical point of view or with a rational explanation, no matter how carefully handled, remains vulnerable to misjudgment. That was exactly what happened with all this issue of the letters and the investigation of Mr. Hudson. Moreover, this situation that she describes in her letter to Sinnet serves as a reminder that true knowledge and wisdom often come at the cost of public scrutiny and disbelief. When ideas or practices fall outside the accepted norms, they become easy targets for suspicion, and even when supported by sincere conviction and rigorous methods, that can happen. So HPB's predicament reflects the broader challenge faced by visionaries throughout history, walking the fine line between revelation and ridicule. And in the end, the integrity of one's path is tested. And that applies not only for HPB and those remarkable members, but we can also learn from that, that in the end, the integrity of one's path is tested not only by external opposition, but by the strength of one's inner certainty in the face of doubt and defamation. So while I was reading the letter, I traced some topics across the same. I'm going just to mention them. And there are issues related to the Hudson affair and investigation. That is, of course, the central subject of the letter, or is what caused the letter. She wrote in the letter to clarify things to Mr. Sinnet. And derived from the previous one, or as in relation, close relation with that one, is the thing of the phenomena. And also there is a part of the letter, this part that I'm going to mention, regarding to the additional information about the precipitation. We are going to go on that on the next session. Today we are not going to touch on that specifically. It's a very big paragraph in which she gives additional information to what was already known about the precipitations of the letters. And there are a lot of things regarding the supporters or the believers, as well as the contradictors and the doubters, that in this case are more mentioned given the nature of the letter. And another topic that I think is very important and is transversal to the letter is the fact that it somehow gives not only an idea of the amazing and faithful character to the masters of HPB, but also on how her life, and especially this event, is a manifesto of practical theosophy and application of the golden stairs, a lot of the steps of the golden stairs. In spite of the suffering and pain that she clearly manifests, she has this endurance, this courageous endurance of personal injustice. And it is felt many times on his letter, while she also talks of the state of what she is, not only emotional, but physically, because she just was recovering from almost 8 weeks on bed, almost at the edge of death, and her health is very fragile. That's why only few weeks or days after writing the letter, she comes back to London to take care of her health. So, as I mentioned, all these 7 topics that I identified, they go through all the letter. And let's see how the letter begins. So the letter begins as follows. It says, "My dear Mr. Sinnet, I am very sorry that the Mahatma should have selected me to fight this new battle. But since there must be concealed wisdom even in the act of choosing a half-dead individual who just rises from 8 weeks of sick bed and can hardly gather her scattered ideas to say that which had better be left unsaid, I obey." So look at the words that she used. Half-dead individual, 8 weeks of sick bed, can hardly gather the scattered ideas. But no matter how she's feeling, as she always did, she always gave prevalence to the cause for which she was chosen. So I obey, she said. She's sorry, and one can feel her sadness and inner as well as outer exhaustion that the Mahatma should have selected her to fight this new battle, because through all her life she faced a lot of these kind of battles of doubt, of mistrust, or of false accusations, etc. But this is kind of the climatic one because it's really a very official, this Hudson report is a very official report that ends up discrediting her in the Theosophical Society in a very prejudicial way. And her closing remarks at the end of the letter, she also reflects this pain and exhaustion. There is a passage in the last paragraphs where she writes, "I am tired, tired, tired." 3 times she repeats the word tired. And so disgusted, then death herself, with her first hours of horror, is preferable to this. So this really gives us an idea of what really she is enduring and what a courage she has that she still faces these kind of accusations. As we read through the letter, we sense HPB's indomitable fighting spirit, her determination to help Sinnet understand the situation, and her unwavering devotion to the master. I obey, she says, in spite of all that. So the situation described in HPB's letter deeply resonates with the steps of the golden stairs, particularly in how trust, duty, and obedience to truth and to the master are tested in the face of doubt and opposition. This readiness, I am going to mention here the 7, 8, and 9 steps of the golden stairs. So the readiness to give and receive advice, is evident in the transmission methods described. So that's why the letters happened. She was ready to give that, receive and share that knowledge. Chelas and Mahatmas rely on disciplined practices to ensure clear communication. However, as HPV's experience shows, even within structured teachings, misunderstandings can arise when skepticism overshadows trust, what is happening at this moment. And this highlights the importance of both careful instruction and open mind when engaging with esoteric knowledge. This is something that we as students of theosophy should keep always in mind. Careful instruction or carefully study and open mind when we are engaging with this kind of esoteric studies, ensuring that wisdom, the real essence of the teachings, are not lost to misinterpretation. Similarly, this sense of duty to a teacher, as stated in the step 8, and the obedience to truth, to the behest of truth, once we have placed our confidence in it and believe that the teacher to be in possession of it. So these two are central to HPV's predicament. She remained steadfast in her mission despite knowing she will be branded a fraud, demonstrating loyalty to her masters and the wisdom that they imparted and they wanted to convey, using her as a channel to this. Hence, we can see that true discipleship requires unwavering faith in the teacher or in the master, even when external forces seek to discredit them. These steps remind us that once we have recognized a teacher as a true source of wisdom, our commitment must not waver due to societal skepticism or personal trials, etc., etc. HPV struggles exemplify this challenge, and standing by truth, declaration of truth, that is another of the steps of the golden star, even when it is difficult, or when this truth is misunderstood, or when one receives attacks due to this standing and defense of truth, is that part of this courageous endurance of personal injustice, also in that faithful and willing obedience to the behest of truth once we have placed our confidence in it and believe that the teacher is in possession of it. And there is one theosophist, Mr. Sidney Cook, that classifies the different steps of the golden star in different groups. So in his classification, these 3 steps that I have just mentioned go under the group cooperation and training. This means that here we emphasize in the trust, the discipline, and the collective responsibility on the spiritual path. Step 7 encourages mutual learning through the exchange of wisdom with humility. Step 8 highlights commitment to a teacher, to a master, acknowledging the role of guidance in spiritual progress. And the 9.1 fosters unity through obedience to truth, ensuring alignment with a higher purpose. Together, these steps cultivate cooperative spiritual community, where individuals support, trust, and grow under the guidance of a true master. HPV situation and mission exemplify the challenges and the responsibilities that come with group cooperation and training in the pursuit of the wisdom, the higher wisdom. And as a leader and as a messenger of esoteric teachings, she relied on a network of students and masters where trust, discipline, and loyalty were essential. However, her experience also illustrates the risks involved when cooperation is disrupted by doubt, by suspicion, or by external scrutiny. The accusations against her and the impending report branding her as a fraud tested not only her personal resolve, but also the integrity of the theosophical movement as a whole. Then, true spiritual training requires unwavering commitment to truth, even in the face of misunderstanding or persecution. And HPV's mission was to uphold and transmit sacred knowledge. And despite the obstacles, she had to do it. That was her mission. And she remained steadfast, demonstrating the very principles of group cooperation, of what Sidney Cooks emphasized in these three, classifying them as a part of the group cooperation, but also of a brave declaration of principles, as I already mentioned. This letter then continues with a second paragraph where we can see references to the TS role in the world as one of the 7 topics that I identified. And the mention to phenomena also comes here. And the detractors that contributing to making Mr. Hudson's report an incriminating one as follows. It says, you cannot have forgotten what I told you repeatedly at Simla and what the Master KH wrote to you himself, namely that the TS is first of all a universal brotherhood, not a society for phenomena and occultism. The latter must be held secret. I know that owing to my great zeal for the cause and your assurances that the society will never prosper unless the occult element was introduced into it, and the masters proclaimed, I am more guilty than any for having listened to this. Still, all of you have now to suffer karma. Well, the phenomena are now all found on the evidence of padres. Padres is the padres or the fathers of the Christian clergy that were one of the group that attacked her the most. And other enemies brought by Mr. Hodgson. From the Bruges phenomena downward, and the masters are dragged before the public and their names desecrated by every rascal in Europe. At first, Hume was all friendly. Then came the revelation. Hodgson had traced the brooch. Regarding the brooch incident, HPV mentions that she had given an identical brooch to Servai for mending before going to Simla, which was later involved in an incident. And she recalls discussing a similar pin with pearls that she had sent to her sister's children and suggests that the jeweler who is connected to her adversary might identify the pin for a bride. So this is not the brooch incident that HPV mentions, and it's quite a fascinating story, and all the details for whoever wants to go and know more of the story are, or the Brush 1 and Brush 2 are recorded by Sinnet in a book called The Occult World. And it's also known as the Simla event because it was in Simla, to which she also will refer later in her letter when she says that since the Simla incident till nowadays, the moment that she writes the letter, all this has like been this consecutive action after action that has put her in the center of the doubts and accusation, etc., etc. And these occurrences were among the early exhibitions regarding the brooch, were among the early exhibition of HPV's production of objects, materialization of objects, phenomena by occult means. Later in the letter, she also continues and says, well, this is where the accursed phenomena led us to. So she's basically assuming that all what is happening is a consequence of a lot of having these phenomena and making them more public and accessible to people. And she clearly had a deep regret over the unintended consequences of emphasizing occult phenomena within the Theosophical Society. While his primary mission was universal brotherhood, pressure for legitimacy led to the premature exposure of esoteric teachings and the masters as well. So this was a premature exposure of both esoteric teachings and the masters, which made them vulnerable to skepticism and distortion. She acknowledges the karmic repercussions, not just for herself, but for all involved, emphasizing the need for discernment in spiritual work and the importance of safeguarding sacred wisdom from misinterpretation and exploitation. This regret also reminds why she and Olcott moved the Theosophical Society headquarters from New York to India, to separate it from Spiritism, which focused on physic phenomena rather than true occult wisdom. At the time the society was moved from New York to India, what was happening that was that in America, the society risked being mistaken for a movement focused on mere psychic phenomena and mediumship, which HPB and Alcott saw as lacking the deeper philosophical and spiritual foundation of true occultism. In India, they align with ancient traditions where esoteric knowledge was preserved with discipline. HPB admits she yielded to her own zeal and external pressure to introduce the occult element, but she reminds Sinnet that the society's true purpose, as Cage has stated, was always brotherhood, not the display of supernatural phenomena or nothing of that kind. This principle, she insists, must remain the society's guiding focus, and that's what it should remain even nowadays for the current society. So it's something that is good that we can remind every single possible moment. HPB expresses frustration and the injustice of the accusations against her. Oh, let me battery. HPB expresses frustration at the injustice of the accusation against her and the Theosophical Society, of course, and she highlights the investigation bias, where enemies fabricated evidence, especially the padres of the church, while she was denied the chance to defend herself. Hudson's shift in opinion after consulting her adversary shows how easily public perception can be manipulated. Because at the beginning, he was like kind of on, or what she perceived that he could be on her side, but after he had this conversation and read all this false evidence, he shifted his opinion. And that shows how this public perception can be easily manipulated, especially regarding occult phenomena, because there is no way to prove the opposite, or at this time, even less. And this reinforces HPB's warning about exposing esoteric wisdom to the public. Once scrutinized by hostile forces, it becomes a tool for discrediting both her and the masters. And she continues in her letter, saying this regarding all this evidence that was misplaced, etc. She says, the padres have spent thousands for false and other witnesses, and I was not permitted to go to law where at least I could pronounce my evidence. And now Hudson, who unto this day seemed most friendly and came nearly daily to us, changed front. Basically, he was a very young and unexperienced person, easily manipulated by whoever at that moment had deep interest and the possibilities and means to invest in their own interests. So he went to Mumbai and saw Windbridge and all my enemies. Returning, he assured him, she assured him Hume, sorry. Wait, I will restart that paragraph. He went to Mumbai and saw Wimbridge and all my enemies. Returning, he assured Hume, who is here and also coming daily, that in his opinion, the evidence for our boys in office and other witnesses is so contradictory that after Mumbai, he came to the conclusion that all our phenomena were prose. Amen. And by the end of the letter, she also says something related to this idea. She repeats the idea or amplifies the idea. Basically, she says, pamphlets by reverends, books and articles exposing me from top to foot appear every day. Theosophy unveiled, Madame Blavatsky exposed, the theosophical humbug before the war. All this were the titles. Christ against Mahatmas, etc., etc. She says, they, the enemies, work night and day, flooding the country with literature against us. And we sit motionless and only quarrel within the theosophical headquarters. Olco held finally a fool, detested by the Oakleys for some mistake that really he could not help, and adored by the Hindus. And now, after the arrival of Hume, I come for my share. So all these things were things that she had to face. And actually, as we see, the Hudson investigation was flawed from the start. Many Indian theosophies, during in her book on the Letters of the Master, Joy Mills states that many Indian theosophies, seeing occult trust as beyond such inquiry, deliberately misled Hodgson, while others, like Subba Rao, refused to cooperate, and loyal members like Kandalavala distrusted Hodgson methods. So they used to see him as an inexperienced and culturally ignorant. So they didn't want to talk much about this. So faced with conflicting testimonies and lacking scientific expertise, not only because of his lack of experience and immaturity at the time, but also due to that moment when it was not possible to prove those things, Hudson concluded that HPV had orchestrated a hoax. And this outcome was shaped not just by bias, but by misunderstandings and HPV's own challenges in defending herself. Or in other words, also due to her courageous endurance of personal injustice, maybe. The Indians that Joy Mills referred to clearly contributed to this misunderstanding because probably they were following obedience to the master and at the same time of not revealing more information than what was necessary. And ultimately, we can say that those were the things that were meant to happen as per karma. And as HPV previously mentioned, as a result of exposure of phenomena that was not meant to be done at the time. And even the fact of Hudson being so inexperienced played a role, of course. And she was right when she said that unto this day seemed most friendly and came near daily to us, as I'm quoting her, changed front after visiting Mumbai. And further in the same letter, she writes the following. She says, I always feel that this investigation of Mr. Hudson will be fatal. He is the most excellent, truthful, expert young man, but how can he recognize truth from lie when there is a thick net of conspiracy around him? At first, when he visited the headquarters and the padres could not well get hold of him, he seemed all right. His accounts were favorable, and then he was caught. We have our informants who follow the missionaries sharply. You in England may love, we don't know. The conspiracy is not one to laugh at. The 30,000 padres of India are all leagued against us. It is their last card they play, either they or we. There was 72,000 rupees collected in 1 week in Mumbai to conduct the investigation against the so-called founders of the Theosophical Society. All the judges of the land are against us. skeptics and nominal Christians, freethinkers and snobs. My very name stinks in their nostrils. And now comes the old sleeping beauty again on the scene. I am, after all, a Russian spy. One more accusation. Last night, the Oakleys dined with Hume at the Garsting and were told very seriously that the government was to overshadow me once more, that they had information by the Coulombs, maybe, and that I had to be washed. This statement reflects the intense opposition from Christian missionaries, padres who saw the Theosophical Society as a threat to their conversions effort in India. By encouraging Indians to embrace and take pride in their own spiritual tradition, that was what Theosophical Society was doing in India, rather than encouraging them to convert to Christianity. The TS directly challenged missionary influence. And these large sums of money that were raised to discredit HPV and the society, along with accusation of espionage, reveal the extent of her fear and hostility from both religious and colonial authorities, who viewed the movement as undermining their control. Annie Besant there is a book of Annie Besant called HPV and the Masters of the Wisdom. And she highlights the lasting impact of the Hudson Report on Blavatsky's reputation, saying that nothing that even years after her death accusation of fraud continued to dissuade people from the Theosophical Society. And she points out that Richard Hudson, the report's author, later became a believer in phenomena, even more extraordinary than those he once denied, and admitted that with greater experience, he would not have issued the report as written. She even says that in a conversation with Hudson when he was elder, he told her that the following: if I had known then what I know now, I will never have issued the report as sent out. And this is amazing because this gives us a very important lesson of really have examine everything, anything that is given to us with a sharp mind, with an eager intellect, with an open mind, as the Golden Stairs say, because and not to get fixated on our ideas and not to let our opinions very easily affect what we do or who we judge or the way we interact with people, the way we see the world, or even affect people, because the deeper we go and as time passes, since we are in a constant process of learning, actually, how we should have this constant learning attitude is very important, because things change through life. So it's important always not only to keep an eager intellect and open mind, but also to be very careful with what we say, with what we do, that can affect other people's lives in a very, very strong manner. Apart from that, what Besant says regarding this incident, she says that HPV clashed with the materialist mindset of her time, challenging it with unwavering strength. At the time, everything that was happening was something very unconventional that people maybe were not ready to even understand or even try to understand. And she challenged it with unwavering strength, only to bear the weight of ridicule and accusations. Yet, ironically, many of the spiritual concepts she championed at the time are now gaining recognition in scientific circles, proving the enduring significance of her work despite past misinterpretations. As we can see, there is a biography of HPV by Sylvia Cranston, and there are different chapters where she highlights the influence of theosophy in arts, in literature, and in science. I mean, a lot of science discoveries were made that deeply resonate with the things that she used to talk about. So at the time, maybe the people of her time were not prepared because she was ahead of her time. But we never know what kind of person or what kind of text or idea can be ahead of our time. So let's try to keep always an open mind and be very careful with what we say and any accusation that we may do. I mean, not to do it, of course. And she calls, Sylvia Craston calls Blavatsky like the mother of the New Age because she brought all this knowledge from east to west. But of course, that is another subject, but I just wanted to point this because I guess it offers us a good opportunity to reflect and to be more detached also of our own opinions because they may change and it's okay, it's growing, it's evolution. Changing of opinion is not a weakness or lack of character, actually is this attitude of being enough courageous to admit that we may be wrong and it's okay because we are in a constant learning. So all that we have seen shows us the kind of character and commitment of HPV, even while facing all these false accusations. Her character, loyalty, and obedience to the masters and the mission they gave to her remained firm, with a courageous endurance of, oh wait, with a courageous endurance of personal injustice, a brave declaration of principles, a constant eye on the ideal of human progression, and a perfection which the secret science book Davidia depicts. She really is the embodiment of all these steps. And let us remind that as per Sidney's book view, the last step of the golden stair from the 10 to the 12, I am only mentioning the 10 and the 11 here, are related to the higher self. Until we reach the final declaration that comes on the 13th step on his respect, Annie Besant mentions on her article, on respect of the third step, that is a constant eye to the ideal of human progression, etc., etc. There is an article by Annie Besant that is called Is Belief on the Master Superstition. And she says that on Madame Blavatsky's name, I pause for a moment because of the insults of those who did not know her, who accuse her of chicanery and fraud. But we know, we who knew her and still know, we bear our testimony that no nobler, wiser man or woman has lived in the present generation upon earth. The insults, the mud, which fanatics and skeptics throw upon her memory, disgrace only the throwers. Evidence of the possibility of the facts she alleged has been accumulating since she passed away. Those who have looked into the evidence against her know how weak it is. In fact, HPB knew that her mission was far more important than any personal attack. The large circulation of Madame Blavatsky's priceless work, the spread of the ideas which she spent her life in learning and teaching, the growth of the Theosophical Society which she founded at the orders of the Master and with the aid of her colleague Colonel Olcott, the ever-increasing literature published by her pupils, all these form her substantial defense, the justification of her life's work, that there is no better defense than her own work and her own legacy that we have today, and we are lucky enough to be be able to grasp even a little bit of that wonderful and huge legacy. However, as Annie Besant reminds us, it's not right that the continued crucifixion of the teacher should be regarded with complacency, while the world profits by the teachings, nor that she should be branded as a fraud, impostor, who brought to this age the truths now gaining such worldwide acceptance. It is but just that her defense should be obtainable so long as she is slandered. So truth remains unscattered despite persecution. Oh, I guess the PowerPoint is not going. Okay. So truth remains unscattered despite persecution, while the persecutor ultimately fails. And HPV's teachings endure supported by defenders. But she has had a lot of defenders as well. But there is one that I want to mention, that is Vernon Harrison, who exposed the Hudson report's biases and flawed methodology in his 1986 work, J'accuse, I accuse, and he demonstrated that Hudson's investigation were unscientific, ignored contradictory evidence, and misinterpreted key facts, particularly from the columns. He deemed the report unreliable, challenging its accusations against Blavatsky. And there is another book of Jinarayadasa that is called Did Madame Blavatsky Forge the Mahatma Letters? And it's interesting to read it because he bases part of the defense in the study and comparison of the handwritings of all the senders of the letters. And he puts the letter, analyzes the handwriting, etc. So he concludes that it's impossible, it's very difficult, or I don't, okay, he doesn't conclude literally that, but he keeps open to the reader the fact that it's very difficult that she could have forged all these different handwritings by herself. And he makes us realize how each day as time passes in a better position that was Hobson in his time in the 1884-85 to answer the question of whether HPV forged or not the letters. And I think as Theosophical Society member, we should follow HPV's example and defend our principles and educate others. So we should know all this history. That's why these letters of the Mahatmas, I mean, they have information of all kind, but the ones that refer to this kind of historical facts of the Theosophical Society are also very important because as members, we should know the story. We should know all these facts so we can properly explain and talk to those who are in doubt or just hear one side of the story on how things were developed and what happened. And that give us a possibility to ensure that misconceptions about her legacy are clarified. And looking at all this situation with an open mind and an eager intellect and putting all the force of our discernment to understand and learn from this kind of situation, always going deeper, trying to see the occult cause and examine things carefully. Viveka is a very important quality on this path. And following this, the letter highlights a recurring issue with the Theosophical Society, that is the tendency of some members to propose drastic changes in response to perceived leadership mistakes. So all this issue was happening, and H.O. Hume was no exception, and he even called a council meeting to demand HPV and Olcott's resignation and the sale of TS headquarters and the formation of a new organization. She expresses like this in the letter: Mr. Hume wants to save the society and has found a means. He called yesterday a council meeting indeed, he proposed to save the society, to forcing all 16 persons to resign as they were all frauds and accomplices, since many of them asserted they knew the masters independently of me and that the master did not exist. The headquarters must be sold, and on its place, a new scientific, philosophical, humanitarian, theosophical society raised. I was not present at the meeting because I was confined to my room. So throughout this history, various individuals have sought to revise the objectives, restructure the administration, even expel key figures. And however, despite all these challenges, the society has continually evolved while preserving its name, mission, and headquarters. She also mentioned that she calls Hume a queer savior because of this statement that or what he was trying to do at the time. And okay, that was one of the things that this situation caused. And we have all, I guess, in all our section, lodge, federation, etc., have experienced this kind of facts that due to a conflict or to some problem that comes up, suddenly a lot of people want to be savior, helpers, and make all kind of reforms. But this is also to remind us in HPV character and inspiration that we should, while having an open mind, an eager intellect, be open to new ideas, and while applying this brotherhood, we also should have clarity and be faithful to the ancient wisdom that is the essence of what we are supposed to be studying, practicing, and what is brought, or the work that she did to bring that all to us. And next on the letter, to end with this first part, she recalls that this situation of the accusation has been there for a long time. As I mentioned before, she says, it began at Simla, opening with the first act, Who Now's Come, the prologue that will soon finish my debt. So it began at Simla, and now it's ending with this specific situation. For the doctors, notwithstanding, who proclaimed my 4 days agony and the impossibility of recovery, I suddenly got better thanks to Master's protecting hand. I carry 2 mortal diseases in me which are not cured, heart and kidneys. She feels that she's about to die. However, she wrote this in 1885, and she only died until 6 years later. She comments on her physical condition, but also on how, as in many other occasions, she seemed to recover almost miraculously thanks to Master's protecting hand. And a survey of her life reveals the number of healings that occurred when she seemed at the point of death. This itself is a big proof of the Master's hand and helping HPV's life and therefore their existence. More on this question of the Masters, the phenomena, the additional information on the precipitations that I mentioned at the beginning, and the people surrounded her as supporters or doubters will be taken in the next session. So far, I would like to close this session reminding how Elena Petrovna Blavatsky exemplified the golden stairs through her unwavering dedication to truth, wisdom, and spiritual enlightenment. She fiercely explored esoteric traditions, promoted unity through the Theosophical Society, and endured persecution with courage, never compromising her principles. Her commitment to human progression and higher consciousness remains an inspiration. And as Theosophical Society members, we must honor her legacy by embodying these ideals in our daily lives, ensuring that the light of Theosophy continues to guide the future generations and the present generations. So that was the reflection I wanted to bring, because really this letter resonated very much in this direction to me personally. Of course, there can be other ways to approach it, but I really found it very enlightening in this way, and the way she expresses herself, and how we can really feel every single word, every single pain, every single sorry, every single tiredness of her is incredible. I mean, it's like a letter that becomes alive as you read it. It's very, at least for me, it was very impactful, and gave me a lot of food for thought. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Catalina. I think you brilliantly analyzed the letter. Totally, that empathy which we feel for HPB, the every emotion, it becomes alive in us. And also very beautifully how you compared the golden stairs in HPB's own life, and also how it teaches us the golden stairs. So now we look forward to the Hindi translation.
Vimal ji, today Meenakshi ji will present Hindi translation. Kindly unmute her.
Yes. I-
We can unmute ourselves.
नमस्ते सभी को एंड थैंक यू सिस्टर कैटेलिना। आज का पत्र है क्रोनोलॉजिकल लेटर नंबर 135। रिचर्ड हॉडसन ने सोसाइटी फॉर साइकिकल रिसर्च के लिए अपनी जांच पूरी की थी। इसके बाद एचपीबी एपी सिनेट को यह पत्र लिखती है। एचपीबी कहती है, माय डियर मिस्टर सिनेट, मुझे खेद है कि महात्मा ने मुझे इस नई लड़ाई के लिए चुना, लेकिन चूंकि एक अधमरे व्यक्ति को चुनने में भी समझदारी छिपी होगी, जो 8 सप्ताह के बीमारी से उठी हुई हो और बड़ी मुश्किल से अपने बिखरे हुए विचारों को वह कहने के लिए इकट्ठा कर पाती हो जिसे अनकहा ही छोड़ देना बेहतर होता, मैं उनके आज्ञा का पालन करती हूँ। मैंने आपसे शिमला में बार बार जो कहा था उसे आप भूल नहीं सकते, और मास्टर KH ने स्वतः आपको जो लिखा था उसे आप भूल नहीं सकते कि थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी सर्वप्रथम सार्वभौमिक बंधुत्व के लिए है, न कि चमत्कारिक घटनाओं और गुह्य विद्या की सोसाइटी। चमत्कारिक घटनाओं को गुप्त रखा जाना चाहिए। मैं जानती हूँ कि सोसाइटी के उद्देश्य के लिए मेरा भारी उत्साह, और जब तक सोसाइटी में गूढ़ता समाविष्ट न हो तब तक वह आगे नहीं बढ़ेगी, ऐसे आपके विश्वास के कारण। मास्टर कहते हैं कि इस बात को सुनने के लिए मैं किसी भी अन्य व्यक्ति से अधिक दोषी हूँ। फिर भी आप सभी को अब अपना कर्म भुगतना होगा। ब्रुच घटना और उसके बाद वाली घटनाओं को पादरियों और शत्रुओं की गवाही पर मिस्टर हॉजसन द्वारा धोखाधड़ी माना जा रहा है, और मास्टर्स के नाम को जनता के सामने घसीटा जा रहा है, और यूरोप के हर दुर्जन द्वारा उन्हें निंदित किया जा रहा है। पादरियों ने झूठे अन्य गवाहों के लिए हजारों रुपए खर्च किए हैं, और मुझे कानून का सहारा लेने की अनुमति नहीं थी, जहां कम से कम मैं अपने सबूत पेश कर सकती थी। और अब हॉजसन, जो आज तक सबसे अधिक मैत्रीपूर्ण थे और लगभग हर रोज हमसे मिलते थे, उन्होंने अपना पक्ष बदल लिया है। वे बंबई गए और विम्ब्रिज और मेरे सभी दुश्मनों से मिले। वहां से लौटने पर उन्होंने ह्यूम को आश्वस्त किया कि उनकी राय में हमारे ऑफिस के लोग और अन्य गवाहों के साक्ष्य इतने परस्पर विरोधी हैं कि बंबई से आने पर वे इस निष्कर्ष पर पहुंचे कि हमारी सभी चमत्कारिक घटनाएं धोखाधड़ी थी। आगे वे कहती है कि पादरियों द्वारा लिखे गए पर्चे यानी पैम्पलेट्स, किताबें और लेख मुझे हर दिन प्रताड़ित करते हैं। वे कहते हैं कि थियोसॉफी अनवेल, थियोसॉफी का पर्दाफाश, मैडम ब्लेवेट्स्की का पर्दाफाश, दुनिया के सामने थियोसॉफी का पर्दाफाश, या तो क्राइस्ट या तो महात्माओं के विरुद्ध ईसा मसीह, ऐसा पैम्पलेट में कहा जा रहा है। वे हमारे दुश्मन दिन रात हमारे खिलाफ देश में छापित साहित्य सर्वत्र फैला रहे हैं, और हम थियोसॉफी के हेडक्वार्टर्स में निस्तब्ध बैठे केवल झगड़ा कर रहे हैं। ऑलकॉट को एक मूर्ख माना जा रहा है, ओकलेज उनसे नफरत कर रहे हैं, और हिंदुओं द्वारा उनका आदर हो रहा है। आगे वे कहती है कि सीनेट से कहती है कि मैंने आपको बताया था कि मुझे हमेशा लगता था कि मिस्टर हॉजसन की यह जांच पड़ताल घातक होगी। वह युवक बहुत ही उत्तम सत्यवादी है, विशेषज्ञ है, लेकिन जब उसके चारों ओर साजिशों का घना जाल हो तब वह सच और झूठ में कैसे फर्क कर सकता है। जब सर्वप्रथम वह हेडक्वार्टर्स में आया था और पादरियों की उस पर पकड़ नहीं थी, तब वह ठीक ठाक मालूम पड़ता था, उसकी बातें अनुकूल थी। फिर वह पादरियों की पकड़ में आया। हमें सूचित करने वाले लोग हैं जो मिशनरियों को का बारीकी से पीछा करते हैं। आप इंग्लैंड में हंसी उड़ा सकते हैं, हम नहीं। हम जानते हैं कि यह साजिश हंसी के पात्र नहीं है। भारत के 30,000 पादरी हमारे खिलाफ एकजुट है। यह उनका आखिरी मोहरा है जो वह खेल रहे हैं, या तो वह या हम। TS के तथाकथित संस्थापकों के खिलाफ जांच करने के लिए बंबई में एक सप्ताह में 72,000 रुपए एकत्रित किए गए। देश के सभी न्यायाधीश हमारे खिलाफ हैं। संशयवादी और नाम मात्र के ईसाई स्वतंत्र विचारक, ये सभी इन सभी को मेरे नाम से चीड़ है। आखिरकार मैं एक रूसी जासूस हूँ। कल रात ओकलेज ने ह्यूम के साथ भोजन किया और उन्हें बहुत गंभीरता से बताया गया कि सरकार फिर एक बार मुझ पर नजर रखने वाली है कि उनके पास जानकारी है और मुझ पर नजर रखी जानी चाहिए। मिस्टर ह्यूम सोसाइटी को बचाना चाहते हैं और उन्होंने इसके लिए एक तरीका खोजा है। उन्होंने कल एक काउंसिल मीटिंग बुलाई। उसमें मिस्टर ह्यूम ने सोसाइटी को बचाने का प्रस्ताव रखा। उन्हें लगता है कि वह इस बात पर जोर देते हैं कि खुलासे के बाद यानी धोखाधड़ी के खुलासे के बाद सोसाइटी बिखर रही है, यद्यपि अभी तक एक भी सदस्य ने इसे छोड़ा नहीं है। कि कर्नल ऑलकॉट को इसके आजीवन अध्यक्ष पद से मैडम ब्लेवेट्स्की, दामोदर, बावाजी भवानी राव, आनंद रामस्वामी आदि ऐसे कुल 16 लोगों को इस्तीफा देने के लिए मजबूर करना चाहिए, क्योंकि वे सभी धोखेबाज थे और धोखाधड़ी में साझेदार थे। क्योंकि उनमें से कईयों ने दावा किया था कि वे मास्टर्स को मेरे बिना भी जानते थे और यहाँ कि मास्टर्स असल में नहीं है। हेडक्वार्टर्स सॉरी हेडक्वार्टर्स यानी मुख्यालय को बेचा जाना चाहिए और उसके स्थान पर एक नई साइंटिफिको फिलोसॉफिकल ह्यूमैनिटेरियन थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी की स्थापना की जानी चाहिए। ऐसा ह्यूम का प्रस्ताव है। मैं उस मीटिंग में शामिल नहीं थी, अपने कमरे से बाहर नहीं निकल सकती थी, लेकिन कार्यवाही के उपरांत काउंसिलर्स मेरे पास आए। हालांकि प्रस्ताव को स्वीकार करने और चमत्कारिक घटना को धोखाधड़ी घोषित करने के बजाय रघुनाथ राव ने उस पेपर को नकारा और झुंझला कर कागज को फेंक दिया। उन्होंने कहा कि वे सभी महात्माओं पर विश्वास करते हैं और घटनाओं को उन्होंने स्वयं देखा था, लेकिन अब उनके यानी महात्माओं के नाम का अनादर नहीं होगा। इसके बाद ऐसी चमत्कारिक घटनाओं पर पाबंदी लगनी चाहिए और यदि वे स्वतंत्र रूप से घटित होती है तो निष्कासन की सजा के तहत उनके बारे में बात नहीं की जानी चाहिए। उन्होंने संस्थापकों से इस्तीफा देने के लिए कहने से इनकार कर दिया। इसके लिए उन्हें कोई वजह नहीं दिखी। मिस्टर ह्यूम एक अजीब उद्धार करता है, ऐसा मैडम ब्लेवेट्स्की कहती है। आगे वे कहती है कि मिस्टर ह्यूम पादरियों से भी अधिक दिलदार है। संक्षेप में कहा जाए तो इसकी शुरुआत शिमला में पहली घटना से हुई और अब प्रस्तावना आ रही है जो जल्द ही मेरी मृत्यु के साथ समाप्त होगी। हालांकि मेरी 4 दिन की पीड़ा कष्टों को देखते हुए डॉक्टरों ने मेरा ठीक होने की संभावना न होने की घोषणा के बावजूद मैं अचानक मास्टर्स के शुभाशीर्वाद के बदौलत ठीक हो गई। मुझे हृदय और किडनी की असाध्य घातक बीमारियां हैं। किसी भी समय मेरा हृदय बिगड़ सकता है और किडनीज कुछ दिनों में मुझे मृत्यु लाएगी। मैं 1 और साल जिंदा नहीं रहूंगी। यह सब 5 साल की निरंतर पीड़ा और दमित भावनाओं के कारण है। हालांकि एचपीबी की मृत्यु 1891 में हुई थी। धन्यवाद। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much. Now we open up for discussions. I see Shinde ji and I also see Shan Singh Gautam ji available. Any of you want to add something or say something? Shinde ji?
No, it is very nicely explained. And this is the sad part of Theosophical Society, actually. We are very unhappy to hear all this history, how great difficulty HPB has undergone. It may be a great test of HPB. After that, she expired, we know. And therefore, to know this, also it hurts us. How she was attacked by these 30,000 or something padris. Whole Christianity was against HPB. She was not allowed to stay in Adyar also. Actually, she wanted to die in Adyar. But this happened. Maybe she must have gone for higher work. Because it is HPB who gave Theosophy to the world. H.S. Alcott gave the Theosophical Society. And both of them, they were treated like this. This is a very sad part, which, of course, we must know it. And Catalina has explained it very well, very well. I appreciate, Catalina, your explanation, and I enjoyed. Even Hindi translation is also very, very explanatory. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nothing to add.
थैंक यू सर। श्याम सिंह गौतम जी, आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं? So, anyway, it's okay. So, basically, like what comes to my mind is that I was just thinking, if HPB and Olcott came to India today, would they get the kind of support they got from Indians they got then? Because India is, I mean, how many Indians will grasp theosophy today? The kind quality of Indians that we have. There were many circumstances which actually made Theosophical Society so alive in India. The fact that we were oppressed by the British, the fact that this ancient knowledge was available to us, but and just also think that it required a Russian woman, an Englishman, to talk about our philosophy, which we knew as Indians. So, I mean, they had the clarity. And then, of course, that's also because of the fact that uh, the British race is I think, the fifth sub race of the fifth root race, whereas we belong to an earlier sub race. So there is an intellectual sort of lag between us and them. At that time, maybe more or whatever. So that may be the reason why the clarity had to come from the words of foreigners or from another country. But yes, I mean, even at that time, there have been messages about the degradation of India. And you can see the 50,000 padris going against HPB, collecting 72,000 rupees. And I was looking at how much that 72,000 will be today. It is several crores of rupees, actually. Couple of crores. The multiplier is 380. So all that makes you really think that, yeah, that human beings become that fight against materialism is still very much on today, as much as it was then. So thank you so much, and I think we can end the session. Thank you, Catalina. It was wonderful, beautiful slides. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Meenakshi
you.
ji.
Thank you, Meenakshi ji. Thank you very much.
So, Asato ma satgam, tamaso ma